On an annual basis, I visit with about 50 to 70 clients. Really depends on the year and my schedule, and if I'm writing a book or something else during that time. There's always something to do whitetail related. But sit down with clients in the morning and we discuss how the day is going to take shape. And really one of the most important concepts that I believe can be installed in any parcel is what I call depth of cover. Now, when I meet with my clients in the morning, it's important to go over all these concepts because typically they've read the books. They've 3 books out. Typically they've read books. I have hundreds of articles, videos. But very important that when I'm there, that the matching of these concepts to their land and your land out there makes sense. And there's always a balance. It's not that I'm looking at one property and that design ever fits to another property. There's similarities, similar colors, patterns, but every property is different. But the concepts never change. They just change by balance. Depth of cover. Very critical concept that I came up with years ago, sometime in the 2000s. Something that you can apply to your land, and it really establishes a foundation for what you're going to do with your habitat improvements, your stand locations, your structure of stand locations, how you hunt. Depth of cover, easiest way I can describe it. It's a 40-acre parcel right here. 440 yards by 440 yards, typical 40-acre size. Now, I would say that half of my clients are 60 acres or less, down to 8 acres I've worked with, so this is really applicable to a lot of clients. You take a 5-acre food plot. You draw that 5-acre food plot in the middle, and really, it doesn't matter what direction you go. And I can promise I did pass art, but I'm not very good at it, obviously. 5-acre food plot, 40-acre parcel. You can't go 155 yards in any direction without going off your property. 155 yards then is your depth. That 155 yards is your depth out of 440 yards, 440 yards of width. That's important because that depth establishes the ability for you to hold and layer does that are bedded against that food plot, bucks that bed behind does. Rarely do you find mature bucks that bed right next to a major food plot, food source, ag field, anything. What I find, the older a buck becomes, the further he'll actually bed and find his little reclusive spot in the woods away from not only food and the stress that goes with food, but the stress that goes with the doe herd, young bucks, and the entire deer herd. You always hear about that old swamp buck that's coming from way out in the middle of nowhere. He's got black on his legs from going through the swamp. Really cool setting, the chocolate racked antlers. And I believe a lot of times he's way out there because he's pushed there. Now this depth of cover, you have food, does, and then bucks. And then you still need to access around your property because obviously if you access right through the middle, you just blow out everything out of the 40 acres. 155 yards is your depth. You're expecting to house does, bucks, young bucks, the entire deer herd, layer them out, and then still be able to access around the property. Kind of a pipe dream on most properties. We'll flip this over. This will represent a 20-acre parcel right here. Say you put that same 5-acre food plot in the front. Let's say you have an ability to get around that food plot so you're not spooking deer in the evening, morning hours when you're getting on and off the stand. If you do the math, that leaves you with 330 yards of depth. So on that 20-acre parcel, a lot greater depth, more than twice the depth that you would have on a 40-acre parcel with that food positioned poorly. With 330 yards of depth, now you have room for does, more does, young bucks, and then hopefully room for some mature bucks behind all that movement. Better yet, you can create travel corridors that extend from buck bedding along the side of doe bedding and all the other deer bedding, and then travel back and forth that's hidden, wall of clear-cut brush, might be grass, tag alder. You can funnel that deer traffic back and forth from mature buck bedding in the back to food up front. What that allows you to do is actually have a strategy for an assembly of stand locations, highly strategic stand locations. What I mean by that is you can have stand locations back here for different winds that relate to buck bedding. Great stand locations for the end of October and most of the Midwest when the pre-rut starts into early November, middle of November, maybe even opening day of gun season, where you're waiting for those deer on a daily pattern like this to actually travel from food and then back to bedding. In a situation like this, you can have stand locations, intermediate stands along the side, stand locations towards the food. So what it does is you have evening stand locations around the food. You have intermediate stand locations in between that allow you to hunt cruising bucks, bucks that are traveling back in the morning, back in the evening to food. And so you can actually have a structure of stands on this 20 acres, and you can have that depth where you promote the layered bedding, where you have food, does, young bucks, and then bucks. And the way I look at this entire system, it doesn't matter where you're located in the country. And it might be that you're comparing a 40-acre parcel to a 200-acre parcel, or an 80-acre parcel to a 400-acre parcel. If the food is located correctly and you allow for this daily pattern of use, then you can have a better depth, a better herd potential, a better herd management potential, and certainly a better hunting potential with a structure of stand locations that make sense for morning, evening, midday, cruising, pre-rut, early season, late season. On this 20 acres, you'll have more value on this 20 acres than you would have on this entire 40 acres. I would rather personally own this 20 acres right here than have to be forced to deal with this 40 acres with all this food in the middle. Because I believe that you can give those deer this afternoon food source that they love to have during the daylight hours. They love to hit that afternoon food, a high quality food plot, about an hour before dark. You can have daytime browse for them. So you can hold deer on this small parcel, send them to this food right here, and then after dark, let them go. Let them go to your neighbors that are over hunting their food plots, and they're promoting a lot of nighttime use in those food plots. Let them go to your neighbor's ag fields. Let them go to your neighbor's wood lots, gardens, ornamental shrubs in their houses and subdivisions. But bottom line, you're controlling that short window of daytime use by establishing a correct depth of cover on your land. You're controlling that daytime, let's face it, daytime movements of mature bucks, box does, anything, that's their smallest window of movement all season long, is during the daylight hours. Who cares where that buck, if 90% of his home range is established at night, let him go. But you control, very few properties control the daylight movements. It's a very important concept that you can apply in your property. Depth of cover is critical no matter what size parcel you have. And I even look for this on public land. So that's something to think about. Get up in those big public land tracts. It might be that mature buck is out 3/4 of a mile. He might be out a half mile. You know, in northern Ohio, you can find a lot more deer in a small space. They're used to a tighter movement of daily movement, daily pattern of movement. Bottom line though, is you apply that balance. Doesn't matter if it's big public land tracts where you're looking at this same system over a 3/4 mile area, northern Michigan, northern Minnesota, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, big woods of Kentucky, or you're taking this on a very small private parcel, small cover in northern Ohio where you can see 2 miles in any direction without a tree, and you're jamming 30 deer into one 40-acre parcel. Bottom line, depth of cover, it works. It's a really important concept that you can apply to your own land or even look for on public land. When you find it, it's great. When you create it, it's really good on private land, and it'll give you that assembly of stands and hunter access that allow you to manage a herd, create a herd, shape a herd, and most importantly, have a great hunt.